here in Kansas City and we are visiting Steamboat Arabia. If you come to Kansas City, you have to come visit this museum. It's absolutely incredible.
Steamboat Arabia was one of the many riverboats going up and down the Missouri River, and it sank in 1856 just outside of Kansas City.
And this family excavated this boat and turned it into a museum.
Neither of us are engineers, but even if you're not an engineer, you can't help but being fascinated by all the mechanics of old paddle boat.
You can see the wooden arm that links the steam engine to the paddle.
You can see the boilers, you can see the turbines, and you can imagine all the work it took to build this boat that only lasted for 3 years.
We're not big sailors, but we have been sailing before, and it was really cool to see the old anchor and the old cabestan, as well as the stern of the boat.
So 2 years before the boat sank, the area just west of Kansas City just opened up for settlers. So there were thousands of settlers that arrived in this part of the country to settle the area. Just imagine an Amazon truck that crashes on the highway and everything you would find in that truck. Well, here is the same thing. That boat sank and everything that settlers needed, be it tools, be it sewing equipment, be it clothing, shoes, and fabric, everything was there in that boat.
As well as pickles and bourbon and 2 prefab houses.
The boat was carrying 200 tons of cargo, and a lot of it's displayed in the windows.
All the tools that the settlers needed to build farms and houses and chop wood.
It makes you realize how the early settlers in the Wild West had to be pretty self-sufficient and had to know a little bit about everything in order to survive in these new territories. And the collection goes on and on and on.
The tools I kind of expected to see, but all the door fixtures, the keys, the locks were kind of a surprise. They were clearly planning on building and locking a lot of doors in the Wild West.
But the family that excavated the boat was after specific treasure. Barrels of bourbon that would have been almost 150 years of age.
They didn't find the barrels of bourbon, but they still found a lot of bottles such as castor oil and some elixir that I'm sure cured every possible disease. But my favorite was these jars of pickles. These pickles are 150 years old, and I'm sure they're still edible. Would you want to try them?
No.
I would. I'd love to know what they taste like. The one thing I wouldn't try are these oysters. It says they're fresh, but I'm sure they kind of passed their due date by now.
Besides tools, there are also a lot of kitchen supplies, such as pots and plates and jugs.
They were also able to salvage the old menu from the boat's restaurant, and some of these prices didn't seem that low even in today's dollars.
The reason why there were so many house items is because there were a lot of women on these boats. Usually, the men would come first and start building a house, and once that was done, they would eventually bring their wife and kids.
I'm sure being able to write was pretty important because I don't think they had very good cell phone coverage back in the days.
And dental hygiene was apparently important back then as well.
And the list goes on and on of all kinds of objects that you wouldn't necessarily think of. All kinds of bells and whistles, literally. You said tobacco, I said tobacco.
The largest pre-Civil War find of artifacts in the country.
And you couldn't talk about the Wild West without talking about guns. Lots of pre-Civil War guns that gun collectors would be happy to own.
All the jewelry and cosmetics was not something that I expected to see either.
But apparently, even in the 1850s, women loved a little bit of style.
And it wasn't just jewelry, it was also shoes, hundreds of pairs of shoes. Shoes for women and shoes for men.
How cool is that? Did they have rubber in 1850?
I don't know.
This is really an amazing place. It's unlike any other museum I've been to. The history is so raw. I mean, to think that they just found this thing beneath the soil and dug it up only within the last 20 years, and they're still excavating everything, it's kind of remarkable. It's all self-funded. They don't take any government money. It's all family-run, basically, and it's basically the family's hobby.
The Mississippi Basin covers almost half of the U.S., and rivers were the main means of transportation to all these places.
The valley of the Missouri River is huge and around a mile wide in some spots.
And back in the days, the river used to flood and expand and contract all the time. You can see the edges of the valley marked by these blue lines, but today's river is much narrower than the valley because it was channelized by the Army Corps of Engineers.
And the spot where the boat sank, marked by the yellow spot, is half a mile from where today's river is, in the middle of someone's field.
There are lots of trees and snags that are floating on the river, and the life expectancy of a steamboat was only 3 to 5 years.
So the 3 years that the Steamboat Arabia lasted was not unusual.
Going downstream was not too bad, but it was going upstream that was dangerous.
They have a map in the museum of all the boats that sank in the Missouri River, just between St. Louis and Kansas City, and it shows how risky the journey was. And certain spots appeared to be particularly deadly.
Steamboat Arabia hit one of the many snags either floating on the river or hidden below the surface, and the actual snag is on display at the museum.
By going through old newspapers and spending a lot of time in libraries, they were able to locate the spot where the boat sank, and with the metal detector they were able to locate the boilers.
They basically knocked on someone's door and said, "We believe there is a steamboat buried in your backyard,"
And they began this massive excavation to retrieve the boat.
with lots of water to pump.
And they started retrieving all of the boat's treasures.
And 20 years later, they're still not finished cleaning up all the cargo that they found. Several tons are still in freezers waiting to be cleaned.
And watching them clean all these artifacts and bring them back to life is actually part of the exhibit.
And you can see the before and after of all these objects that are being cleaned.
Luckily, none of the 130 passengers on board died, only a mule that they nicknamed Lawrence of Arabia.
It's really an amazing story of how a family persevered over many years to find these treasures deep below the river and bring them up for everyone to share and enjoy.
The museum is located in the City Market District just outside of downtown Kansas City.
And on weekends, you can stroll the farmer's market, which is just outside the museum.
And you can buy all kind of fresh produce. It has a little bit of a European vibe that we didn't expect to find in Kansas City.
The best way to get to the Steamboat Arabia is to take the light rail that crosses the downtown area and stops right in front of the museum. And at the other end of the line, you can also visit the Old Union Station, one of the other landmarks in the downtown Kansas City area.
So another yellow magnet on the map right in Kansas City. We hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up. If you have questions about Steamboat Arabia, put them in the comment section below. We'll try to answer them as quickly as we can. If you want to subscribe to our channel, click on the link that we're going to put somewhere here. And if you want to watch our next videos, we're going to put one here and one there. Bye!